Byron stands behind the podium for handover, sifting through his papers as he bags under his eyes, and it's been a long night for him. To my left, I can see the warden in his office making a coffee, in his own little world thinking about the day to come. Time passes and the rest of my colleagues filter in. Right. Please, a little quieter if you don't mind, says Byron in a sheepish tone. He looks pale and his eyes move around more than usual. Okay, let's get to it. No major issues, just, he says, biting his lips, then looking at us. I don't know if you remember me yesterday telling you about Cage 4, them peculiarities, he says, itching the back of his head. Well, last night, me and Majorly was doing our usual rounds, walking up the corridors, you know. And when we got to Cage 4, we saw a group of large men walking from the corner towards us. We stopped. I think there were 5 of them. When they got close, we noticed they had someone. He says, itching his head really hard. This poor guy, he was terrified. I actually thought I could hear him scream. These big guys, they just carried him over right up close to the glass and pinned him to the floor. A guy on each limb. Byron itched his head harder. Then I noticed him walking over from the corner. A skinny guy, black hair, black eyes. Dead eyes. My God, says Byron, glaring at the paper in front of him. What is it, Byron? Asks Rick in the room that is completely silent. He began stamping on his head, says Byron, stopping his itching. But they all stared at us. He stared at me, but stamping, says Byron. I didn't know someone's head could be that way, says Byron, losing his voice a little. Then that skinny black-haired guy, he took out a sharpened object. Don't know what it was, maybe a bone. Cut him right open, disemboweled that poor bastard. And then they threw his organs, tossed his empty body at the glass. 10. I barely believe my eyes. Tough Byron brought to tears by Cage antics. Sure, he'd watched someone ripped apart, but... Right, comes the warden's voice as he stands at his door with his first coffee. This isn't a playground. Pull your thumbs out your arses and get moving. And Barrett, sure, my office now. My colleagues head towards the main door, towards the killing fields. As Joshua walks past, he rolls his eyes at me and smiles. I feel like a schoolboy going to see the headmaster. Inside the office, me and Shaw sit opposite the warden who slurps his coffee. A minute passes, and I can feel Cade looking at me. Not in a threatening way, but in a why the hell isn't he speaking way. Right, says the warden as his mug hits the desk hard. If you two want to play silly buggers, you can do it somewhere else. Not here, not at work. Do you understand? It was just some friendly competition, I assure you, says Cade. That true, Barrett, says the warden, speaking before I had a chance, because it didn't look that way. It looked like a dangerous weight that was crushing you. Let me tell you something, boy. I'm the boss, you're not. I've done work like this for years, and I've seen what rivalry can do. It gets people killed. You should be looking out for each other, says the warden, picking up his coffee. Yes, sir, I say. The warden's eyes narrow over his mug. Then the mug comes down hard. Bullshit! Things like this just don't go away like that, do they? Here's what you're gonna do. So, you heard about Byron last night, didn't you? You see the effect on him? Anyway, last night I sent a file to CW, and they came back with suggestions on action, says the warden, looking at his computer, narrowing his eyes at the screen and reading it out loud for us. It says here, if a physical threat actually does present itself, presence is advised to neutralise the situation, says the warden, looking back at us. That's it, that's all they wrote. You wouldn't believe it, would you? These guys are on a fortune. It's the best they can come up with. I could pull that sentence out of my arsehole, so-called fucking experts, he says, taking a quick slurp of his coffee. So what do you two think? Truthfully, I think it's a pathetic answer from CW. A vague answer that refutes responsibility, putting accountability onto the warden. Then the warden does the same to us. It's called good management. Take no responsibility but all the money. Sounds like a good idea to me, says Cade confidently, folding his arms, almost ripping his jacket. The way I see it is, we get geared up and take in a team, say 8 men. Keep it tight, show a presence. That could show results in the coming weeks, says Cade, The warden's eyes light up. They may as well turn green because Cade has been given the go-ahead. Brilliant, Shaw. Just what I was thinking. Show this guy who's boss. What do you think, Barrett? Says the warden as Cade turns to face me. The words that come out are the exact opposite of the ones that are in my mind. I think it's ingenious, a well thought out idea. Brilliant, says the warden, leaning back in his chair. Here's how I see it. You two, with your rivalry, can't work together. So now you both get the chance to impress me. Cade, you'll lead a team. Barrett, you another. You'll go into cage 4 with your men and do as you see fit. Put us back in charge. Whoever puts in the best performance will get promoted, and that should end the rivalry. Understood? Yes, sir. And may I just add, I'm looking forward to it, says Cade, with them gleaming little teeth. And you, Barrett? Says the warden, looking up with intensity. I bite my lower lip, give myself a moment to think. What do I think? In the time I've worked here, I've never actually been in a cage. In fact, I've never heard of anybody going into a cage. The whole idea went against its purpose, its ethos, its reason. Do you think we really need to go in? I mean, murder in the cage is nothing new. The horror is what makes the cage what it is. It's what deters people from committing a crime. And technically speaking, these men did nothing wrong. Nobody has jurisdiction in the cage. As we know, the law doesn't exist in the cage. Should we go interfering? You're scared, Barrett, aren't you? Says the warden, with a smile and snake eyes. Cade laughs in a deep way. I know immediately there's no room for higher debate. This is a boys' club, and I need to play the game. Scared? Course not. Give me a team and I'm in there, I say. Good lad. I really am leaving this one on you two. You know where the right gear is. I know you, Cade, have a lot of experience in this area with your last job, and I trust you, Dan, to do a good job. Thanks, sir. I'm looking forward to it, says Cade, standing up. I sit there and contemplate the whole exercise. How will they react when we enter their world? Barrett, says the warden with a little glare. Are you sure you're up for this? Don't you want that promotion? What's wrong? Don't you like extra money? Of course I'm up for it, sir, I say, standing and putting on a fake smile. Good. Now both of you get back to work, says the warden, waving us out and turning to his computer. Me and Cade turn and walk towards the door, where, shoulder to shoulder, he steps across me and his shoulder hits mine. He feels strong, too strong, like a fridge. He opens the door and I watch him leave for the killing fields. I stand there in the handover room, feeling the air-conditioned air over my neck. The silence and the cool climate give me some clarity. It's nothing awe-inspiring. I realise I am scared of going inside, and I believe Cade will be too. I think he's just better at hiding it. The workday passes like any other. The inmates are fed. We drop food from installations in the ceiling, if you're wondering. As you can imagine, when that food hits the floor, it's carnage. But not always. A hierarchy is usually often established. Inmates come and inmates go. But there's a different feel. Somehow the glass looks thinner now, clearer. The prisoners, with what sometimes appears to be yellow skin, because of the bright lights of the floodlights above them, seem to smile more, with matching yellow teeth and eyes. Do they know what's coming? I try hard to banish the demons in my mind and try to focus, but a numb feeling comes over me, and I continue the day's work mechanically. A blister begins to rub on the inside of my shoe, and when the morning shift is over, I'm happy to take them off and change into my regular clothes. I splash my face with water as I'm about to leave. I don't see anybody on the way out, and the corridor seems strangely quiet. I become aware of my footsteps, and the pain of the blister begins to burn in my trainers. I step outside of the correction centre onto the streets, and black clouds are above me. It's aching to rain. As I walk to my car, the first drop hits my wrist, and I open the door and shut myself in as the sky lets loose. Water cascades to the earth and ricochets on the glass, blurring my vision. I hear the distant rumble of thunder. As I start the engine, it rumbles with the sky. As I'm about to leave, my phone beeps and the sky lets out an enormous roar. I look at my phone. It's from Joshua. It's a message telling me I'm on a late shift tomorrow. That's fine by me, I think, throwing my phone onto the passenger seat. A 2 o'clock start just means a lay-in and a fry-up. As I drive out of town, I keep the radio off. I bask in the serenity of the warm car, emphasised by the wet thunder outside. In a way, it's beautiful, out there, Red brake lights of cars reflect against the wet road, illuminating it, whilst white light of car headlights pass on the other side of the road fill me with melancholic hope. There's something beautiful about a storm. I think it speaks to us. It contrasts and makes the beautiful sunny days seem much brighter. The truth is, the real storm awaits me at home. I pull into the drive, unlock the gate, and walk to the back door. I enter the kitchen and shake off the rain like a dog. And there she is, sat at the kitchen table, like I brought the rain clouds inside. She hasn't cooked. She hasn't even turned on the lights. The only light is the one coming from her phone screen at the kitchen table. I don't expect her to say hello, but I do expect her to look at me. It is natural when somebody enters a house. But not for her. Her long white fingers simply reach out to the wine glass. I think that red wine has become her blood. She now needs it to survive. In the silent kitchen, the tension grows. It's unbearable. I want to pop it with a hello, but I don't. I refuse to make it easy for her, because she's been a bitch for too long now. If she doesn't want to speak anymore, well, that's fine by me. I make coffee in the dark kitchen as the thunder rumbles, moving around the drinker without a word. I walk into the living room and feed the fish, and watch the colourful guppy race to the top of the tank and then turn on the TV. I watch an old TV show about a chemistry teacher who becomes a drug lord. It's a little dated now, but it's brilliant. I watch the protagonist, called Mr. White, get into an argument with his associate and partner in crime, Jesse. They argue in an RV. It's their makeshift drug lab, and it's because they're locked inside, whilst the DA agent, Hank, also Mr. White's brother-in-law, waits for Jesse to leave the RV so he can be arrested. As I watch them on the TV, I see a fear. That dread is the prison. The cage is not an option for them, living in turn-of-the-century Albuquerque in the United States. But I wonder how they would feel at that prospect. Shorter sentences, but much, much tougher stay. I sometimes wonder if there's any criminal that prefer the cage. It would have to be a big, violent man who could protect himself. Back on the TV, the genius Mr. White thinks of a brilliant idea. He gets someone to make a fake call to the DEA agent, Hank, telling him his wife has been seriously injured in a car accident and is awaiting him in hospital, and he swiftly leaves. It's at that moment my wife enters the room, her long legs on display as they cross the room. Her blue skirt covers little. And in one hand is a bottle of red wine, in the other her phone. She walks slowly to the far side of the room and sits on the far sofa. I look at her there as she stares at her phone. Damn, she's beautiful. I could never deny it. Some naive, hopeful part of me thinks she might want company, but no, she just wants her phone charger. I watch my show and then try to indulge in the escapism, but I can't help the occasional glance at my wife. She smiles at her phone screen, then she types rapidly and gives more smiles. She's in conversation with someone, somewhere in the world. I hope to think it's her sister, but her sister isn't that funny. I'm certain it's another man. Women can't make women smile like that. As she laughs, I begin to stare. I stare at her profile, at the perfect shape of her nose and jawline, one that implies good breeding and femininity. Her beautiful eyes peer down at that faraway happiness, and I could not be further from her mind. The husband who paid for that wine, that phone, the internet bill, and even that little blue skirt. The living room turns dark as night draws in. I open a green bottle of beer and feel the condensation dripping down its side. 5 hours have passed and not a single word has been spoken. I relish the beer and watch the evening news. Terrorism in North Africa, Europe besieged by extremists. It all bores me. After my beer, I feel a rumble in my stomach, so my mind turns to a tuna and mayonnaise sandwich. I enter the kitchen and whip up the tuna and mayo in a big bowl and get out my bread. I make my sandwich on a chopping board and then reach for the long shiny knife with its wooden holder. I pull it out, it glistens wonderfully. I then catch my wife's reflection behind me. I jump a little and drop the blade. Who's Gemma? As I turn, I see my wife staring at me with bloodshot eyes. Excuse me? Don't excuse me. I can see it in your face. I genuinely don't know who she's talking about. I then remember the only Gemma I've ever known. Out the blue, she sent an email to me 2 weeks ago asking to go for a drink. You went through my emails? It was an accident. Do you think that low of me? Yeah, she asked to meet up, but I didn't even email back. I say. Well, why is she messaging you all of a sudden? How am I supposed to know? Is she an ex-girlfriend? No, just somebody I know from my last job, I say. Just someone that happens to have your email. How convenient, she says, moving her hands in a sarcastic manner. She leaves the kitchen in a hurry, and I kneel down to pick up the knife. Suddenly I feel brave and a little angry, so I shout through to the living room. I receive an email, and I don't respond to it, and I'm a bad guy. While you sit at that table all night, every night, getting drunk, laughing, taking screenshots and all other things, speaking to men, I'm sure of it, and I'm the bad guy. My grip around the knife has grown too tight. I slam it on the kitchen worktop and pick up my sandwich and head into the living room. My wife sits there aghast. I take a seat in front of the TV and bite into my sandwich as mayonnaise squirts out the other side. Have you got a problem with me having friends? She says coldly. I don't answer. Don't you trust me, Dan? You know what? Every day you go to work, taking that car and leaving me here stranded. What am I supposed to do? I have to talk to people somehow. It's my only way of feeling normal. You think it's easy stuck here all day? I can't believe you don't trust me. And the drink? Boredom. Is that okay with you? I'm actually surprised by her civility. She whips out the charger and leaves the room with her so-called life source and heads towards the bedroom. I put on another episode of Breaking Bad to watch Mr. White. I open my eyes slowly and the news is on. The TV choices system has turned off and automatically gone to the news. I wonder how long I've been asleep. I hit the red button and silence the stories of war, then turn off the light of the room. I leave the living room towards my bedroom and open the door quietly. All I can hear is the sound of her soft breaths. The room is cool. I take off my clothes and it gets colder as I slip into the bed, only wearing my underwear. I shiver as the duvet touches my skin. I look at the ceiling and a small amount of light comes in through the bedroom window. I watch this spot for some time. Its edges moving as the curtains gently sway. It soothes me. My eyes close. And then I feel something. It's her hand, and it rests on my stomach. I cannot remember the last time she touched me. I fight against the urge to open my eyes. I want to stay in the moment. I want to hold her fingers and feel connected to the woman I once loved. As my hand moves, so does hers. It slides down towards my underwear. As her hand explores my mind, wonders. We hate each other, but still her hand. I don't think she needs love, but the truth is I do. I don't need that. I need my wife. I take her wondering hand in mine, and there's a silence. I go to kiss her, but she rolls away to face the window. I lay there on my back, with eyes open, looking at the light on the ceiling. Sorry, I whisper. I brace myself, but there's nothing. It's like something has died. We go to sleep.
The glass feels cold against his palms. He stares with black eyes at the night guard. He watches fear run through men in blue. His nose presses against the glass, and he grits his teeth into something like a smile. The guards come closer. It's their duty to walk past the glass, past his glass, but they do not dare look. Their heads are down, and he sees through their minds. Minds he is now in. He breathes hard against the glass, leaving condensation. Then with bony fingers he writes. The young guard looks up and reads, "Fear me." He taps the guards next to him and points, but the words have faded into nothing. All that remains are the black eyes with the stretched out arm and pointing. He laughs at them, completely naked. The guards avert their eyes, looking back down at the safe concrete floor as they continue their walk.
11. The morning light wakes me as the spot on the ceilings engulfed the room. I'm alone in my bed, and I stretch over onto the floor for my phone. It's 10:15. I'll give myself 10 more minutes. It feels nice knowing I'm in no rush. I go over today what I have to do at work, the skirmish in Cage 4. I think that's how I will define it. Then I remember turning down the sex from my wife. Was that the right decision? Perhaps sex could have been a building block. I don't worry too much about it. I begin to think about coffee, and so I get up out of bed and reach for my dressing gown, concealing my nakedness from the world. I walk out of my bedroom, tie my robe, and head into the living room. The smell of bacon hits my nostrils and leaves an echo in my stomach rumbling. I look into the kitchen, and the lights are on. Things are moving. Bacon hisses in the frying pan. The radio plays Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac, and the toaster pops. My wife wears an identical white dressing gown to mine and flies around the centre of the kitchen doing 5 jobs at once, draining bacon fat away, buttering bread, and telling me to take a seat at the table. I do as I'm told, and my tablet lands in front of me, with the news page open. What coffee do you want, the Costa Rica or the Brazilian? She asks, with the cafeteria in her hand, looking at me with those big beautiful eyes. I hear the lyrics from the radio. Open up, everything's waiting for you. The Costa Rican, I say, sounding pleasantly bewildered. She whips around and begins to prepare the coffee. The headline in front of me reads, What a state, this new state. What will the state state? Referring to the issue in the Middle East. Go your own way, sings the radio. The bacon sandwich and coffee lands in front of me. My wife takes out her own seat opposite me, with her own bacon and coffee. What time are you at work? She asks, biting into her thick smoky rashers. I start at 2, set off at 1:30. Is everything okay? I ask her, her kindness throwing me off centre. Yeah, fine, she says as I look down at my sandwich and wonder if she's poisoned it. She slides over the ketchup. Just didn't expect to wake up to a bacon sandwich, I say with a smile as the smell of rich coffee hits my nose. Well, I thought since I'm making one, and I know you hadn't gone to work, throwing some more bacon into the pan wouldn't hurt, would it? Is that okay? She asks. Yeah, really nice of you, I say as she smiles, taking another bite. Even with grease on her chin and bags under her eyes, she looks beautiful. I barely notice it change, but now Dreams by Fleetwood Mac plays and I hear the lyric, Thunder only happens when it's raining. Strange for the radio to play 2 in a row. I press my cup to my lip, allowing the black Costa Rican coffee to spill onto my tongue. The rich, full flavour and textures are amazing. This is really nice. Thank you, she says, getting up, taking her plate to the sink. It's not too much to ask you to do the dishes, is it? Of course not. Okay, I'm going to my sister's in a little while, she says, moving towards the kitchen door. I was thinking about what I said yesterday, about being stranded here. It's not true, there's a bus. I was making excuses and being a bitch. I'm sorry, she says, looking down at the kitchen floor. I look up at her, and the sun comes down our garden through the window and shines beautiful light upon her face. She looks angelic, and I see the woman I fell in love with. She looks up at me and gives me the prettiest smile and leaves the kitchen. As she exits, I notice the music has stopped playing. It hadn't been the radio. It had been music from her phone. I sit in silence, allowing the sun to warm the back of my neck, wondering where the awkwardness and disdain has faded to. I felt no paranoia or anxiety, no urge to scream at her. The cooking and the coffee went by like a perfectly practiced script from a film called Happy Families. The sun on her face had made her seem natural and pure. Is there a chance for us after all? 12. On top of a sweat-drenched bedsheet, with a racing heart, Cage Shaw woke, with fingers clinging to the mattress for his life. He'd had that dream again. He put his palms against his face and rubbed vigorously, feeling steam of sweat on his brow. It's just a dream, he mouthed, but said no words. He stood up in the dark room. A glimmer of silver light came in through the window from the moon, aiding him on his way to the ensuite bathroom. He flicked on the light, safe white light on the marble bathroom floor, which made him wince. He stepped up to his sink, leaning on it with his massive hands, looking in the mirror. He saw a man, a powerful man, like a Greek god. He was his own Adonis. But as he gazed away from that body, he caught his blue eyes and it began to happen. The horrible change. The little boy he once was staring back. He hated his face. Deep down he knew he was ugly. Dumb eyes too, far apart, with a constant red, pissed-off expression that would never go away. There's a deep self-hate in me, Cade admitted when he was alone. It stemmed from his school days. The other boys had been constant in the last years of school. The older they get, the less innocent they become. The name-calling he could cope with. Freak, with the odd shoulder barge, that wasn't so bad. But when puberty had decided to make Cade grow nearly a foot one summer, well, they didn't like that. Turning up to the new school year, they had looked at him with amazement and hesitation. They didn't see little Cade anymore. Where a quick punch or maybe a spit could make your friends laugh, they now saw a threat. Bullies act in one way when they don't understand. They attack in fear. And that's what happened to 15-year-old Cade. They waited at the school gates and brought that new 6'4" frame back down to earth. Cade liked the hospital. A good break. Being unconscious for a month had been like dying. Something he'd wished for often. But after months, hooked up to machines in pain, barely able to move, a different, just as painful type of misery sort of took hold. This one didn't have a stingy stomach when you thought about crossing the playground. It had a fuller, more deep feel. His mother was there bedside, but she still had to work at the laundrette. So she would collect magazines from around the hospital and leave them at Cade's bedside table. One morning, she left the magazine as Cade rose from his drug-induced sleep. She kissed him on the cheek and left for work. He glanced down at the magazine, and there was a god. He literally shined, gleamed goldenly. Muscles shone, a physical power. The magazine was Weightlifting Monthly, in big black block capitals. The god beneath was a bodybuilder. We Talked to the Legend was the title. At this moment, Cade had seen his eternity. His eyes absorbed every curve of that man's figure, muscle almost inhuman. He had found his answer. If this man could do it, so could Cade. He had found a religion and was to become a disciple. Blessed by a huge frame, he would put it to good use. He flicked over the cover page and began to read, and his world began to change. Cade turned from the mirror in disgust. He splashed his face with water from the sink, telling himself to work extra hard in the gym this morning. He went back into his dark room and rummaged the floor for tracksuit bottoms and vest. After throwing on the first items he found, regardless of clean or dirty, he went downstairs and flicked on the kitchen light. The room was dirty, and a smell came from the bin, which harboured a chicken carcass that had been rotting for a week. He ignored it, taking out 2 strawberry protein shakes with extra egg that he prepared last night from the fridge. He drank one and put the other in his gym bag and headed out the door, locking up, jumping in his car and leaving for work. 13. I arrive at work late, too eager to discover what happened to Walter White. I should have turned the TV off, but I couldn't. I pull into my usual parking space at twice the usual speed, nearly driving into Joshua's Honda. I killed the engine and locked the car, running up the steps into work. I run down the corridor and push open the door to handover. The room, it's empty. I look at my watch. I'm 5 minutes late. I look instinctively at the warden's office. The lights are off. He isn't in. I might have got away with it. Out of all the handovers I've ever had to miss, this would be the one that actually mattered. Cade had entered the cage this morning, and I wonder how it went. What happened? I hate to admit it, but I could have gotten some tips. As I approach the killing fields, I realise how much of an error I may have made by missing handover. Knowledge is power. Without it, I'm blind. Great. I push open the door to the fresh air and it hits me. The sky is grey and the yellow lights inside the cages glow with extra vigour. In front, down the concrete corridor, is the familiar trio, Joshua, Reynolds and Stimps. Joshua sticks out a hand, waving me over, and the tension that was building washes away. "Hey, Captain," says Joshua, with a smile and salute. "Heard you're in charge this morning." "Apparently. What you heard?" "Apparently you're leading us into battle, into Cage 4, to show him who's boss," says Joshua, laughing. "Is that so?" I say. "Did they say anything about Cade?" The trio looks at each other. Their eyes grow and there's a silence. Or is there? Could I be imagining it? "What happened?" I say, blurting out the words. "Easy now. Nothing. They went in like they were supposed to. Pushed some crims about. In and out in 20 minutes. That's what Burton said at handover. Burns? Why not Byron? He's gone off sick. Spooked the other night when they ripped that guy apart. Don't think he'll be back for a while, said Reynolds. Pussy. I mean, what do you expect working in a place like this? The guy's always acting so tough. True colours shine through, I think, said Joshua. Yeah, I guess, I say, thinking how much I would hate to see a guy's intestines ripped from his own stomach. So what's the plan then, Captain Barrett? Says Reynolds. They all look at me with smiles, and I wonder if I'm the only one who feels a little nervous, but I show a brave face. Right, rally the other men. Is Vorney on shift? Reynolds nods. Tell Vorney he's to stay on the corridor, just in case someone comes through. I want the rest of us geared up, get the right gear on, and meet me outside cage 4 at 3 p.m. Understood? The trio salutes me. We all laugh and feel a little calmer. Right, I'm off to get a coffee. See you here in half an hour then. Fall out. We stand in front of cage 4, batons at the ready, right gear on, helmets and visors. I look across at Stimps, Reynolds, Joshua and Rick. They smile like schoolboys, the excitement that transpires as nerves. Men are scared of looking scared. I feel calm and look into the cage. Everything seems normal, even calm. The yellow lights inside seem to have dulled to almost amber. I wonder if one of the bulbs have gone. I look at the far corner, where this weird ritual-like behaviour resumes. There's dancers who are surrounded by muscle men, and beyond them is the skinny, dark-haired man we're all pinning this upon. I turn back to face my men. I look at Vorney by the glass door. He gives me the nod. Go ahead, Vaughan. Let's get this show on the road, I say. He presses buttons on the screen beside the door, and the lights on the screen turns green. Let's do it, shouts Joshua, moving forward. I put a hand on his shoulder, stopping his march forward, and joyous smile. Do what? I ask with raised eyebrows. Smash them, he says with a boyish grin. Right, I say, elevating my voice, letting my authority be heard. Let's make this clear. We're not here to smash 'em. We're here to rough 'em up. Bloggs' words as well as mine. Remember, they're murderers, rapists, evil itself. So going in there with no plan would be ridiculous. So follow my lead, ignore the scattered scum. We're heading up to that far corner to disperse of that crowd, using your training and your riot shields. If they get aggressive, stay close to each other, and head for that corner. The skinny bastard. We got the tasers right? Sure do, says Rick, holding up 3. That it? I ask. All I could find. Place was a tip. Right, Ren, Stimps, you take them, and you two stay at the sides. I'll have one, and I'll stay up front, okay? The men mumble. My speech has killed their enthusiasm. Rules are never fun. I can't hear you, I say, putting on a fake smile, feeling like a maths teacher trying to get a class excited for algebra. The visors come down, and we line up outside cage 4. And Rick hands us the tasers. I give Vorney another nod, and he presses the release button. With a swoosh, the door opens, and we're exposed to hell. Hot air lashes out. I step forward and peer in, and I look at them like demons as they slowly step into the cage. We creep in, and the glass shuts behind us, sealing us in. It's like a vacuum, void of all humanity. The silence is deafening. I almost don't want to break it. I feel no longer in authority. With that thought, my eyes instinctively look across to the far corner, towards the Satan of this hell. Our entrance is obvious. Bloody faces and starved men scatter around us. Some naked, most shaking. The prisoners of cage 4 are weaker than the other cages. All its strength is in the far corner, a disease that has almost killed the rest of the cage. Slowly we walk together, between weak faces that seem old with worried eyes and knees that shake. I watch a young boy hold the hand of an older man. They both look like they're crying, but they are not. It's become their natural expression. They are both naked. I presume their clothes was taken by the corner. I imagine anything of worth is taken by him. I look at the pair. I can see their rib cages. Their eyes appear huge with a shiny glaze. The older man's beard is grey and knotted. The younger boy watches us with a wonder. I wonder if he ever thinks about the error of his ways. As we pass the pair, we reach the centre of the cage. I step over a corpse. Somehow, he'd managed to retain his trousers. His awkward body seems to argue with the ground. Anyway, he lay resulted in pain. I'm sure he died in agony. As we pass between eyes of starving men, I'm reminded of a soldier liberating a concentration camp. I have to remind myself that these are the victims of their own doing. Getting closer, I look with squinted eyes towards the corner. I see him. His eyes meet mine, and he stares through the dancing and the chaos around him. Though he's far away, I notice some bruising on his eye, making the cruel look more disturbing. I see him shaking as he stares at me. Wait, I say to my men around me. We stand dead centre of the cage. The demon glares at me over everything. His hate is palpable. Suddenly, he raises both hands to the sky. In an eerie silence, all his dancers turn towards him like dead souls. His guards then turn up and look at their leader. Their heads bow as he stands frozen with his hands up, palms open towards the ceiling of the cage. He reminds me of a Christ on the cross, hands up rather than widespread. They watch him in the stillness that absorbs the entire cage, including me and my men. Then his hands come down. His men, in perfect unison, all turn and stare at us. I estimate there's 30 of them, and 5 of us, and my heart drops. The leader lets out a scream that breaks into a demonic, evil cry. His men began to run towards us, a tidal wave of hate, the heavies leading the charge, the naked screaming behind them. "Come in tight, close formation," I shout, putting up my riot shield. Feeling Reynolds and Stimp stick to my side, putting up their riot shields with mine, creating a glass wall within the glass cage. "Where's Josh?" I cry, looking back, and I see a dropped shield in his wake as he makes his way to the exit. I think coward, but as I look forward and see a crowd of men running this way, I feel that he might have made the right decision. Rick stands between the exit and us, the 3-man wall about to collide with a mob of murderers. His decision astonishes me. He puts up his riot shield and runs up beside us, making our wall 1 man stronger. "What's Joshua doing?" Rick cries. Nobody answers. We brace ourselves, and those that have tasers get them ready. They're here. A skinhead jumps into the air, flying towards us. We step back, and his feet hits my riot shield, putting me off balance. As his back hits the ground, Reynolds steps forward with his taser like a sword, stabbing hard into the man's torso, giving him a taste of electricity. The power astonishes me. The skinhead jolts and writhes as Reynolds presses the taser further in. He doesn't let up. Smoke begins to rise from the man's eyes, and blood spills at his ears. Reynolds steps back, creating an enclosed circle. A fist hits Stimp's shield. He pokes out his taser. It misses, but snaps at the air, crackling with a warmth. The mob encircles us, but the crackling of electricity and the burning man on the ground makes them apprehensive. They snarl at us meters away, like hyenas. We slowly walk back, prodding out our tasers, crackling them in the air, warning them what will happen. Our nervous walk back continues toward the exit. As they follow us like wolves, eyes are all around us. I imagine the atrocities they have committed, the knives they have held, the throats they have slit, guns they have wielded, women they have abused. Their eyes are full of hate. Our walk continues, the evil creeps forward. I feel a glimmer of hope. We've made ground, the exit is maybe 30 meters away. I pray with every step, making sure not to trip. It could be the end of all of us. In the corner of my eye, a flash of flesh comes flying towards us. I look and see a young, slim man with long black hair fly through the air. He screams and collides with Reynolds' riot shield. His hands hang off the top of it. His weight drags Reynolds down. The pair hit the ground hard with a tangle of naked limbs. Instinctively, our formation tightens, and Reynolds looks at us with stomach-sinking eyes. He closes them as the young naked man's hands are clipped around his neck. Another grabs his hair as he is dragged back in, absorbed by the crowd of evil. I don't think what happens to him. My heart races, and with it my steps quicken. Their steps echo ours, getting closer. I push out my taser, almost shocking one. He screams as I see a mouth to decay. He grunts and tries to snatch the taser, but I'm too quick. "Almost there," shouts Rick. 10 meters, he cries. I shout the steps. I watch some smaller, evil-looking man. He hits himself hard in the face and his nose begins to bleed. 5 meters, he cries. 3, 1. I hear the door open and see all the eyes of evil widen around us. We predict a final charge, stepping out whilst thrusting out our tasers at snatching hands. The door closes and they push themselves up against the glass. White and black eyes, evil faces press up against the glass, leaving their breath behind. Some begin to hit others and scream at us. But something happens so much more disturbing. The crowd seems distracted. They all look back and almost begin to disperse as they wait for something. As I look through the opening of evil, I want to cry. Standing there is Reynolds. His chin wobbles and something's wrong. I peer closer and notice he has no arms. Blood seeps from his shoulders, down his body, which is now entirely red. He begins to run towards the glass, against his will, like he's being pushed. With no arms, he collides into the glass. His face cries like a child, and from behind him, like a corrupt shadow, he appears, smiling with black eyes. The demon from the corner appears from the back of Reynolds' neck. He moves his head beside Reynolds, and with a sinister smile he licks his ear. Reynolds begins to convulse as he turns white. His knees turn weak and he slides down the glass, leaving a trail of blood. His body hits the floor and the leader stares at me. His smile turns into a grimace of hate. He turns and walks away. His horde of demons follow. The crowd makes their way back to the corner, leaving Reynolds' corpse as a reminder, and one that I can't stop staring at. 14. You heard the expression chewing on a wasp. Well, Bloggs looked like he was chewing on a hive. His eyes twitched as he stares over his desk. Just me, him, and a lot of tension. I don't know where to begin, he exhales, like a man moments from suicide. He puts his hands against his eyes, trying to grasp the unattainable situation. His emotions don't worry or unnerve me. I'm dealing with my own. The stinging guilt is obvious in my shaking hands. How did it happen? Says Bloggs, his eyes still closed. I see Ren in my mind, on the floor up against the glass, armless with a streak of blood running down the glass. They knew, I murmur. Bloggs' hazel eyes opens. I see the apprehension in him, a new thought and uncertainty. Well, hasn't this been a balls up? Reynolds is dead, he says, looking remorseful. The amount of paperwork CW is going to have to get me filing. It's going to keep me going to retirement, he says, wiping the remorse away with self-pity. Is it true only 5 of you went in? Says Bloggs. That was the team available, sir. I had to keep someone on the floor, so I kept Vaughnie out. I told you a team of 8, he says, eyes narrowing to judgmental slits. The shift is palpable. I'm the employee. He's the boss. No longer are we mourning the death of a colleague. He has an angle and a job to do. I told you 8, Barrett. Why was there only 5? He says, eyes wide open now. He might as well smile. I know his anger is just masking the pleasure that he knows it's not his fault. Sir, there was only 6. What could I have done? I say, raising my voice, forgetting where I am. I do remember him saying it now, as I sat in this very seat next to Cade. But I worked with what I had. Teams are always fluctuating, people swapping shifts and calling in sick. You have to do what you have to do. You know what? I should suspend you right now, he says. His hazel eyes remind me of stone upon his bony face. I wonder if his mate is made of stone. I think about cracking a rock over his head and finding out. Suspend me? For what? You're a fuck-up, I almost shout. I risked life and death, thrown to hell and almost killed due to poor protocol. I should be the one getting angry with him, but no. He has the audacity, the authority, to blame me for Ren's murder. You think it's my mistake? Why? You went in there like a bull in a china shop, he shouts. Because you asked me to, I shout back, edging forward on my seat, clenching my fists. He blinks first, turning away with a sigh, looking towards the bookshelf, knowing he isn't going to win this argument. Suddenly, he looks more thoughtful and stands up, putting his finger on his lips. You're not getting suspended. I said that in the heat of the moment. I just can't believe Reynolds is dead. I'm finding it hard myself, I say, relaxing my clenched fists, feeling the tension in my fingers ease away. I admit I'm part to blame, but so are you, Barrett, he says, looking more calm now. I take his professional approach as a waving of the white flag. I don't know if you want to hear this, but Cade's raid went perfectly well. He managed to get in there and safe return, and ruffled some feathers in the process. I heard he gave that weird murdering Messiah a good hiding too. But you didn't want to hear that from me. I think about him, the Messiah, the Satan in Cage 4. In my mind, he now seems beyond or below human. I couldn't believe what he did in front of Byron, and now I've seen his cruelty with my own eyes. How did he get Ren's arms off so quickly? Sir, do you know anything about him? I ask. The warden takes his seat and intertwines his fingers, looking me straight in the face. His name's Raoul, a cult leader on the outside. He arranged a mass suicide. He's here for a long time. I'm telling you too much as it is. I know. What do we do with him? I ask. He turns towards his computer, attempting to look busy. I can feel his awkwardness. That'll be for me and Kate to discuss tomorrow. Sir? He's your new senior, Barrett, says the warden, beginning to type on his computer, an invitation to leave. I leave Bloggs' office needing a drink, mostly water, then alcohol. I feel hazy as I try to grab the situation. Most of it's the murder of Ren, but hearing Cade's going to be my new boss bothers me. He's been here barely a day. I look towards the door leading to the killing fields, unsure what will greet me. I can barely stomach at the idea of seeing Reynolds up against that glass. I bite the bullet and take slow steps towards the door. I open it and notice how much darker it is now. With the sun setting, I see my colleagues, near Cage 4, but they're all facing away from it. I walk up and nobody takes notice of me. Nobody looks at each other. I don't dare look at the cage myself. I see Stimps, looking like a schoolchild waiting for a beating. He rocks back and forth and stares at the ground with watery eyes. How you feeling, Barrett? He says, staring at the ground. I can tell by his tone something is wrong. Excuse me? I say, looking up at him as he does me, with Rick and Joshua's eyes joining the interaction. You killed him, Barrett? He says, looking at me with big eyes welling up. I go to shout, but I'm stunned by the silence. I can't get my words out, and as I look at Stimp's distraught face, his chin begins to wobble. You killed my best friend, he says as a lone tear rolls down his cheek. I look at Rick and Joshua for support, but they look back at the ground, confirming my crime. I didn't kill him. Don't put that on me, I say, pleading, looking at them all. They all resist the urge to say anything, allowing silence to hang there like a noose. It tightens around my neck as I feel guilt grow, and it becomes a struggle to swallow. I look towards Cage 4 and see the streak of blood upon the glass that remains. With mayhem on our minds, we go about our jobs in a quiet, respectful manner. We barely speak and carry out menial tasks. When it's time to go, it couldn't come any sooner. As I leave the killing fields, I pass the warden's office and see he's staying on late, dealing with Reynolds' demise, sending a report to CW and other places, I'm sure. I can't get out my uniform quick enough. I take it off in the changing room and shower there, embracing the water, trying to clean myself of all the chaos, but it doesn't work. As I leave the building, I look across the car park. I can see rain in the light from the lampposts. My car is alone, reminding me of myself. I run down the steps towards my car, feeling the drops of rain trickle down my back. I press the button on my car key, and the headlights flash up the night as I jump into my car, shutting the door and the cold out. For a brief moment, I feel alone, just me and the pitter-patter of rain upon the windows. Alone in the dark, I have a rare moment. I begin to rain. My chin shakes as I wipe tears from my eyes. I rest my forehead on the steering wheel. "Get a grip, Dan," I say, pulling down the sunscreen and looking at the bloodshot eyes in the mirror. I shake my head in disgust and put the sunscreen back and start the engine. As it hums, I repeat to myself, "It's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault." I pull out slowly and drive home, in silence, forgetting about music. I get home, and before stepping into my house, I look at the sky. The rain stops, and the stars have come out. They're more vibrant and twinkle a little more. I assume it's because I'm further away from the city lights. I put in my key and open the door to the dark, empty house. I can hear the hum of the fish tank in the next room and see its glow. My wife's forgotten to turn it off again. As always, I walk through the kitchen and into the living room to feed the fish, turn off the light, then think about getting a beer. I resist the urge. Bed is the place to be. I walk through the dark house to my room, and I immediately notice she's not there. The blinds are open and the moonlight reveals a perfectly made bed. She's gone. I don't feel panic, sorrow or despair. Just, she's gone. I don't fear the empty room. She's been gone for a long time. I almost smile at the tranquility it suggests. I take off my clothes and walk to the window. The moon is shining on me as I close the curtains. I get into bed and close my eyes. My mind wanders between the disappearance of my wife and Wren. Both plagued with worry, I toss and turn, and I don't remember falling asleep, but eventually it takes me, making my thoughts more real in the medium of a nightmare.
Raoul looked at the cage, past the dancers and the bodies, to the point of its entrance, where his wonderful moment of murdering took place. He began to walk there, as he moved his dancers, revered in excitement, thinking he may pick them. Tonight may be their turn. But no. He walked past them, dismissing them. His guards watched over him, a couple deciding to walk with him, respectively several steps behind him, knowing their place. As Raoul walked past, the scum of the cage crawled away, making their way towards the glass, trying to get as far away from him as possible. He continued his walk, almost strutting in confidence. He could now see the guards on duty on the other side watching. He could smell their fear, sense wanting them to leave. On the outside, the two guards felt nervous in their stomach. They watched him walk to the very spot he had killed Reynolds, getting on his knees and looking at the blood and smiling, revealing sharp canine teeth. Then came out his tongue, touching the glass-stained blood, licking it, all the time maintaining eye contact with the guards. began to laugh as he watched the security guards look away.